Welcome to Mr. Holloway's Foundational Java Skills series. In this video we're going to talk about while loops, but before we get started, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Alright, while loops are very useful in programming. It's a subset of what we call an iteration. And with iterations we have while loops and we have for loops. So these are the different types of loops. So in this video I'm going to talk about a while loop, and then in the next video we'll talk about a for loop. Alright, so let's talk about the concept of just an iteration. Imagine you have a kid who is talking in class and they have to write standards. In this case they have to write them on the board, and the teacher could say, I want you to write them 50 times, 100 times, whatever. And so this is what you get. Now I'm going to teach this kid how to make this process more efficient. So it doesn't even matter if the teacher says, hey, I want you to write 20 standards or 1,000 or 10,000. We're going to actually make this a lot more efficient. All right, so let's get started. So the first thing I want to do is just kind of set up the structure of the while loop. So I'm going to do while, and I'm going to do my opening and close parentheses, and then I'm going to do my opening and closing curly brackets. Alright, so that's kind of just the general structure. And then I'm going to set a variable, and I'm just going to call this x, and we'll set this to 0. Alright, this is going to come into play in a second. And so what happens with the while loop, whatever's inside of here, so we'll call this the do something. So inside of here we want you to do whatever inside of here, as long as this condition is true. So as long as this condition here is true, keep doing this. And the minute it's false, stop. Okay, so we're just going to set up a quick little scenario here. So what we're going to say is, as long as x is less than or equal to 5. Alright, so the do something is this. We're just going to do system.out.println, and I'm going to say I will not talk in class. Alright, now if I run this now, we're going to run into a problem, and the problem is that this is going to keep going on forever, because this is always going to be true. So let's run it. And if you notice, it just keeps going, and you can tell by the seconds here, it's just going to keep going and going and going and going. So let me stop this. Okay, so that's not what we want in this case. In some cases you may want something to continue forever, but in this case we don't want that. And so what we just experienced was an infinite loop. So that is an infinite loop, and we don't want that. So we need to avoid the infinite loop. And the reason why is because as long as x, which is this, is less than 5, this will continue to go on forever, because x is always less than 5. It's always going to be 0. So in order for us to avoid that, we're going to put in what's called an iterator. Okay, so the iterator keeps that in check, and I'm going to go x plus plus. Now x plus plus just adds 1 to x. Okay, so what happens is it goes in a loop, so it just keeps kind of going like this. It keeps checking as we add 1 to x. It keeps checking the value of x, and is it less than 5 or equal to 5. All right, so now watch what happens. And this is where we get what we wanted. And actually I'm going to just count this too, so I'm going to do the value of x here so we kind of know what number we're getting. Okay, so let's go ahead and run this. And you can see we get 0 because the first iteration the value is 0, where we start out, and then it adds 1, and then becomes 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So imagine a loop kind of just going around in a circle, and the code just executes, It executes, and it's going to execute as long as this is true. And when this becomes false, at some point this will become 6 at some point, and then 6 is not less than or equal to 5. And so now we have a scenario where it doesn't matter how many standards the kid gets, right? We can do 100, 1,000, doesn't matter. We can just do this really quickly. And so that is the value of what a while loop is. And so now we're just going to write 100 standards just that fast. And so if you can see, we have all the way up to 100, and you can't see it because it's off screen, but it goes all the way to 100 and it stops. Okay, so that is the value of a while loop. In my next video, we're going to talk about a for loop, and we're going to look at the differences between the two. But again, in review, the while loop has different parts. The first part is just the general structure, and then as long as this condition is true, and the conditions we've set is as long as x is less than or equal to 100. Here is the variable that we set, that is the condition, a part of the condition. And so this is the do something, and then we cannot leave out the iterator. If we leave out the iterator, we're going to get an infinite loop, and that's not what we want. All right, so I will see you in the next video. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel, and I will see you in the next video where we talk about for loops.